Wow.
I spewed all that out.
I think
Pretty
I,
impressive.
okay. Anything else anybody wants to add?
Well, it was relevant, like you gave us a real world problem, like something that we might have to do. Oh, there it is, sorry, I didn't see that.
For my scribbles.
It was also after lunch,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really
Okay.
important to have activity after lunch while people are trying to digest and do those other things, because otherwise you go.
Okay.
Well, and I was to say, having been a math teacher, for your disengaged, especially disengaged boys, they view this kind of activity as a contest or competition in some ways, and they become more involved in something like this because they look at the other groups and want to see who's gonna win or whatever. So,
I'm laughing because yesterday as we were walking up the stairs, Mark, who was he with? I don't know who he was with, but he was up front, and then he's like, well, what are y'all gonna do? And how are y'all gonna do? I mean,
But he's naturally like
but
that.
he's very competitive, so as you say that, I mean,
Well-
we couldn't get up the stairs before he was asking us what we were gonna do and how this was gonna be, and I'm like, you do your own thing, you know, so.
I just,
yeah,
I feel like, you
definitely.
know, it was when you think about what NCTM says is a good lesson, it had all the components of all the strands that NCTM says need to be in a good math problem. So,
Was it complicated?
Yes,
no.
I thought it was.
Not really. It was fun.
Okay. I mean, from the teacher standpoint, it is pretty straightforward. Just figure it out. You're on your own. Okay. So, okay. Awesome. Good things. I did notice that the first thing y'all asked me was,
Do you know the answer?
do you know the answer? Why? Why?
It's because we want to be right.
We want to be right.
That's what I'm
Okay.
telling you, people,
And check your
it's like a
answer.
contest, it's a competition.
All right.
Well,
So,
confirmation, validation.
put that down here. Competition. Okay, so competition is good.
And you didn't set it up as a competition, but people inherently want to be right.
Well, because it helps you evaluate yourself,
Yes.
That's also true.
yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be messing around with a process that isn't gonna help me.
Okay. So in the classroom, whether you set it up as a competition or not, the competition is there.
Yes.
Sandra.
Not everyone likes competitions. If you look at the gender research, I don't know if you keep up with Leonard Sachs' work. Boys and girls have very different personalities, and then there's subsets within those. So
Okay.
to me, that says I can't have the same assignment for everybody. I mean, I might have the same assignment today for one set, but tomorrow's not going to be exactly the same. Let's say competition, if you will.
Well-
It's not going to be another competition one.
I think.
Could be problem solving,
I think about
but not
my
necessarily
sisters.
competition.
My sisters are not competitive, so they wouldn't even consider it a competition. They would go out with their group and be very compliant and do the work, and they would still get something out of it. But then your disengaged boys that like competition. This is what's gonna, when you decide it's the next day, and when you teach our cosine of theta lesson, they're gonna actually be paying attention because they thought about how they figured it out without knowing any math, and that math becomes more relevant to them. So I think it's not, you don't have to even say it's a competition. I just think you're naturally competitive people. They rise up, and I say this from having, for whatever reason, as a middle school teacher, each year as a middle school teacher, I had at least one class that had 22 boys or more.
Ooh.
Just as a fluke. And there would be like 3 or 4 girls in the class. And what I noticed is anything that seemed like a contest, I had a lot of engagement.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, what about negatives? Should have done this. None? Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Didn't have the answer.
No answer.
We still don't know if we're right.
Yeah.
We found the plans for that building, but we couldn't find an isometric drawing of it, so.
That's funny.
It's a movie building. Let's Google it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
I
All
thought
right.
it was just a superb example of what we want teachers to do. And then for us to be able to experience what we want teachers to be designing for kids to do, I just thought was, I really liked it.
What I enjoyed about it, we attacked this two different directions. And you saw men think different than women. Men think big. Look at big. I was worried first of, all right, how are we gonna measure the rafter? There's a rafter here. Where's it? Now she was into the detail like, okay, I'm not even worried about that. And I went to that, she went to say, okay, what are we gonna use to measure here? And I let her do her thing, I did my thing, and then we just came together. But then also, there was checking for understanding and checking whether right, because then she says, you're not about 6 feet, you're not 6 feet tall, are you? I said, no. She said, well, that way we can make sure that we're accurate, and then she even took the picture. So you saw two people look at it totally different, but he came together, because then what I saw was, all right, you did your part, and I like that, but now I'm gonna show you a little piece that we missed. And I think there was no intimidation. And I think also you understood, hey, look, you in the process, now you understood, hey, now I understand why all these prior skills are so important.
Okay, one of the things that I was hoping that you would say up here in terms of a negative is ambiguity.
Why is that?
Well, I was hoping you would say that. I don't necessarily view ambiguity as a negative. But have you ever had a lesson that you had it clear in your mind, but when you presented it to the students,
Oh my gosh.
they just didn't get it at all? And part of the reason was that things that you took for granted, you understood, they viewed as very ambiguous and didn't know where you were coming from. And so I thought it was kind of interesting that y'all went out there and the ambiguity didn't faze you at all. You just went out there and did whatever you wanted to. But there are some students and some teachers that need to be given a list. Do this first, do this first, do this first, and do this first. And one of the things that I wrote in my book, Teaching Students to Dig Deeper, is that one of the college readiness traits is that you have to be comfortable with ambiguity. Not knowing for sure which direction or how to do things or where to start, you gotta be comfortable with that. And so I think this kind of activity sometimes is really, really good for students. And you're gonna see some uncomfortable students because they want direction. They want you to tell them how to do this. But even worse, you try something like this with your teachers, you're gonna see the same thing.
I was just thinking of that.
Exactly the same thing.
Because
And
the
this-
pleasers have a hard time, they wanna please, and teachers, I think the majority of teachers were pleasers when they were students.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and teachers are teachers for a reason. Yeah, we're kind of cast out of the same mold. I mean, there's variations, but certain types of people consider being teachers.
Okay, one of the things that I is going through my head, remember yesterday when she talked about how writing builds confidence? And how she built that paragraph and then all of a sudden, then they read it out loud and it sounds awesome.
Oh, well, he did a masterful job. Wow.
And so that's
That wasn't prepared, right? That
that's a
wasn't on the
confidence
spot?
builder. How is confidence related to being able to tolerate ambiguity? Is there a correlation between a high level of confidence and being able to tolerate ambiguity and a high level of ambiguity, or like
It would make sense.
I'm just wondering that, that's one of the.
Well, I think perfectionists don't have trouble with ambiguity. When you're a perfectionist, some people would be really bothered and want to know the right answer. Like, they would be telling him, you need to find out the right answer, or they would be paralyzed by fear to even attempt but that's where the group work works, because what was interesting, and that's that case study that we read, I was making the connection, it seemed like that Jennifer took the lead in her group and everybody followed, and then they came to more meaningful, so it sort of supports Vygotsky when you have a heterogeneous group with everybody brings their own set of more knowledgeable other things that they put together to come up with something, you know. So I go back to a friend of mine got a job with a public accounting firm, and they sent him to a business to do a trial balance. And he had a master's from the University of Chicago, but he had never done a trial balance. He said he sat there and looked at the paper for like 2 hours before he finally called the senior and said, I don't know what to do, because it was kind of ambiguous what they told him to do. They said, go over there and create a trial balance. If they'd given him some more detail or whatever, and so I think in my life outside of school, how many ambiguous things you really do have to deal with. A plumber, they don't know what the problem is when they come to your house. They have to start they're dealing with a bunch of ambiguous facts that they try to put together, and I think all jobs are like that. And
All
as a,
problem solving is
yes, well, as a math teacher though, we tend to make kids think there's a right answer.
yes,
But
and
most of the
hopefully you
time
saw
in
that.
math
I
it's
think
true, there is.
Dr. Browning mentioned that math is all nice and neat and beautiful,
Yeah.
and science is all messy and gooey. So, okay, y'all know your Roman numerals, right?
Yes.
I hope so.
I don't think they teach those anymore.
Okay,
I'm not
what number is
confident
that?
anymore.
9.
9.
Okay, so there's a certain method for understanding that. If you didn't know your Roman numerals, that wouldn't mean much to you. Okay, so on your piece of paper, on your scratch paper, doesn't matter, backside of the paper, write that Roman numeral down.
Title 9.
That's the only reason we really know that.
Exactly.
And here's a problem for you. Add one line to make it a 6.
Can we take away anything?
Nope. Can't change it, just add one line and make it a 6. That's pretty easy, I think. If you know the answer, cover it up, though.
Oh,